What's going on, guys? We are back once again, and we are going to be talking more about The Quiet Place. We're finally going to be talking about Quiet Place Part 2. I recently did another interview about the very first Quiet Place. I was not really interested in that film, so I want to go ahead and say when I watched this one, I wasn't intentionally expecting much, but going into this one, I'm actually shocked we got more than we actually did. And when I say that, we actually get more of a backstory of what initially happened the day when this all started. Because it goes on day one of when I would say this invasion started. Because pretty much what happened was it does show the family that initially we saw in the very first film is, of course, Emily Blunt returns, her husband returns, and the kids return. But what we see in this is where they're at a baseball game for the oldest son, and we see where as soon as that happens, everything just goes in chaos after what looks like to be a meteor shower, and everyone's going insane, like trying to get home, trying to do this. But it's not as simple as you would think, because as soon as that happens, whatever these creatures are just start destroying everything in their path, and then it goes back to current time frame, and they have no choice now but to leave the farm, literally where they're at, and be able to try to find another place for their home, as well as be able to find other locations. So now they have to grab everything and be able to find another safe place, because now with Evelyn, who is played by Emily Blunt, with her husband now being dead, she's got to take Marcus and Regan, I would say Regan, and the baby somewhere. And when they go, they unfortunately almost set up a tripwire. And once they go through some issues wherever they're at, they accidentally, Marcus steps into a bear trap, and it alerts one of the creatures. And they actually get to see a family friend, Emmett, who saves them, who later reveals that his family was killed about a year or so ago, and he is offering to help them only for one night, but then they have to leave. And she's stating that if her husband was alive, that it wouldn't be like this. And he even says that there's really no reason to continue going. You just gotta hold out as long as you can, and then that's about it. So he really does not care about living or dying at this point. Obviously, losing his family. And then we see where Regan, she comes up with an idea after they finally hear a radio broadcast of music stating that it's the same song over and over again. But then she figures out it's not a song; it's a call sign. You just got to go through the code. So she wants to go on her own to find this by using also her earpiece, so she can put it on the radio station and be able to repel these creatures. Because I think I brought this up somehow or other. What repels them is somehow high frequency. Then we get to see also that apparently they have an issue where they cannot swim either. And then we also get to see where certain weapons can kill them, but it's easier to use a high frequency to get them disturbed or not being able to focus. That way you can kill them easier. So what we do see in the film is where she tries to go, and then once her mother finds out, she begs and begs her friend, or their family friend, go find my daughter, please. And after finding that, he finally does, and then they go through this journey. Once he kind of catches up to her, and it's almost really reminds me of a Joel and Ellie kind of situation, and that I didn't really mind. But again, there was issues with this film, because I'm not going to try to get too much, but this film actually helped more in the first one, because there was less sign language in this. There was also more talking to where you could understand what was going on, but to a certain degree. It's just you really had to pay attention to what they were saying at times. Sometimes it's the audio, sometimes it could have been something else. But either way, you just really had to pay attention to understand what was going on when they were talking. I don't know if it was because of my own audio or something else. Either way, but I will say I was indefinitely shocked of how everything concluded to this movie. And again, there could be a third film at some given point. There very well could be. Do I have a problem with that? No, I don't. I have no problem with that whatsoever. But at the same time, again, I wish they would have gone into more detail rather than kind of doing it the way they did. And when I say this, I mean to the point of certain movies have a problem where they want to show only a little of the first part of the story, then they want to give us more in the sequel. If they would have given us more in the very first movie, maybe the first movie would have been a little bit better. Now, I'm not saying that this movie was, oh, absolutely amazing. It wasn't. It had its issues. There was not more information about where these creatures came from. There really wasn't. There was no information about what happened with the military or anything. There was no information on what happened to the other people that their family knew. So there wasn't, again, there was a lot less. I mean, again, with everything that this family went through, you could feel bad for them because they lost their, for the mother's perspective, she lost her husband and her youngest, her was youngest son within a realm of not even a full 2 years. And that's a lot to handle. So I do have sympathy for that. But again, while I say, oh man, you need to watch this movie, if you want a horror slash thriller, more like a thriller dramatic movie, then this may be the movie for you. But again, it's not one of those movies where I gotta say, hey, go check it out. But again, at the same time, it's your own place if you want to check this movie out. Again, this movie was not really the one for me. I think that if there's another one that comes out, it could be better. I think this movie or this franchise has a good quality of becoming better if it was just better written rather than leaving so much out, like about the monsters, where all the other survivors. They did show survivors in the movie that went nuts and then wanted to use them for whatever, to find supplies or their own devilish reasons, or to they found an island in the movie that everyone was secluded on, be able to stay safe from all these monsters, and then that gets shown. So there are things that does get shown within this film that makes sense, but at the same time there are things in this film that lack and that really hurt the film. And I think that if they would have done just a little bit better, then maybe this franchise would be better off than how it is. Because again, it's one of those franchises where maybe you can watch maybe twice, if that, and then after a while you're just like, okay, I've had enough, I don't want to watch it no more. And it does do that. It does get boring at sometimes, out of my opinion. And then later on, there's at times where you're on the edge. You're like, okay, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? And then it slows down, and then you're right back at where, like, okay, what's going to happen? So it does have a way of keeping you on your toes, but at the same time, it does help the movie, but it also makes the movie go down even less. So 1 out of 10 for The Quiet Place. I give it. Last time I gave it like a 3 or 3.5. This time I think I'm going to give it a 4.5. I'm going to bump it up 2 more points because there was a little more action, there was a little more detail, and there was a little more of a story this round than there was in the last previous film. So 4.5. If you guys seen it, go ahead, check it out. I'm not saying you don't have to or you got to. It is your choice. But either way, let me know what you guys think about this down in the comments down below. If you guys have any chance to about subscribing, leave a big fat like on the video. I would greatly appreciate it, as well as click notifications so you guys know every time I upload. What were your thoughts about this film? I personally like to know down in the comments. And as always, see you guys on the very next one.